broken pieces of old bottles as Yamashita treasure signs. We have already covered from the other previous video, the meaning of old bottles that are not broken. But, many were asking about the meaning of old bottles that are broken into small pieces. Before we start with the interpretation about the meaning of these objects, I would like to share with you a short story that has something to do with the meaning of the broken bottles, used by the Japanese Imperial Army, as markers to their hidden treasure deposit. There were two brothers who wanted to attempt and explore an unexplored tunnel in their place. They were so curious to know what they could find inside the tunnel, that they neglected any of the possible danger that might be awaiting inside. One of them was holding a bag full of boiled raw peanuts, and he was eating them while they started walking inside the tunnel. After a few hours, and they reached a certain portion of the tunnel, the elder one who was leading them on their way had finally decided that it was time for them to go back. Unfortunately, they realized that they got lost. They could not find their way back because, as they turned around, there were so many similar pathways that they could not tell which one among them did they originally came from. Luckily, the elder one noticed the scattered pieces of trash which was from the raw peanut being eaten by his younger brother. This gave him a brilliant idea about what they needed to do. They followed them carefully until they successfully found their way out from the tunnel. Now, according to a Japanese general, who was a friend of mine, and the same person whom I mentioned in my egg-shaped rock videos, they applied the same trick from this story in one of their treasure deposits that they had personally hidden. They simply dug a hole, with some sort of random directions going around. Then at the very end of the hole, they properly placed their treasure and left it behind. But as they left the treasure spot, they scattered broken pieces of bottles along their way back out onto the surface. After several years had passed, my Japanese friend came back for the treasure deposit, along with his team of Filipino treasure hunters. When they found the digging spot, and recovered some of the broken pieces of bottles, they already knew that the rest was simple and pure digging work. Thus, they continued digging as they followed the directions of the broken pieces of bottles, until they had finally reached the location of the hidden treasure deposit. According to my Japanese friend, this broken bottle method was a very common technique that they often used when they were feeling lazy, completely tired, or on the rush. It is indeed quite simple and very effective, that not too many treasure hunters are aware about. So if it happens that you recovered some sort of broken pieces of old bottles in your diggings, you should try to follow its direction, and expect that you will find more additional pieces around. However, if you are recovering broken pieces of bottles as you are digging downward, but they are suddenly gone, then you need to check the corners, because they might have changed in direction. Aside from broken pieces of old bottles, are also broken pieces of old pottery. Broken pieces of old potteries do have the same meaning, where it also often guides you towards the location of the hidden treasure deposit. But not unless the broken pots were reshaped into certain particular signs, such as triangles, squares, circles, and etc. Moreover, you have to be extra careful when handling broken pieces of old bottles because they can be so sharp. And in most cases, the Japanese Imperial Army soldiers do often contaminate the ground layers with their chemicals. You should already be aware that when you get a cut, and you are exposing it too much under the contaminated soil, the chemical can easily enter into your body, which is not good. Thus, always wear your protective gloves and boots when dealing with broken pieces of old bottles.